In August of 2016, prolonged rainfall from an unpredictable storm resulted in catastrophic flooding in the state of Louisiana. In my city of Denham Springs, 90% of the homes received water, some 4,200 homes. Of those, 3,000 of these homes received 18 inches or more of water, 25 to 30 inches of rain in less than 72 hours. The Amite River, which cuts through the heart of Livingston Parish, crested at 46.2 feet, some 5 feet above its previously recorded record and some 17.2 feet above its flood stage at Denham Springs. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Local Leaders, the podcast. And standing across from me is a person, or sitting across from me is a person that you may recognize. As a matter of fact, if you don't recognize him, you need to get out of the hole you're living in, because he is everywhere. Of course, I'm talking about Darren James. So Darren, how are you? And thank you for coming on the show.
Jim, thank you so much for allowing me to be here, man. It's an honor to be here. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share what we, the opportunities that we had regarding the flood of 2016. That's what we're talking about today, huh?
10 years.
Man, it's unbelievable how fast time has just gone.
It really is. And, you know, Darren, I look back, and I'm sure you're the same way. I look back on it now, and I can't believe the day that happened versus where we are just 10 years later.
No doubt about that. It's been, I mean, it's changed a lot. This changed the forefront of everybody's lives.
Yeah.
It's changed the landscape of this entire community. It's done a lot of things to both positively and negatively impact the lives and the parish of Livingston for sure.
Agreed. If you would, I'd like you to take myself and the listeners on a little bit of a journey of that day, as Darren James recalls it.
Yeah, and I'll share something with you you probably didn't know during that day. So I remember it like it was yesterday. My dad calls me up, and I'm an only child. Yeah. And so we lost my mom in 2015 in October of that year. Oh. And so the flood comes in August of 2016, and my dad's living right across from Seal Funeral Home on Romney Drive. Yep. Calls me up, he says, Darren. I said, how you doing today? He said, I'm doing great. He said, I don't know what they're talking about, all this water. He said, it's dry as can be over here. I'm like, yeah. 20 minutes later, Jim, no doubt, he calls me on the phone. Here it comes. And that's what he says on the phone. Here it comes. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, the water's rising. Well, my dad had all kind of memorabilia. He had every Simpson comic book from volume 1. Oh, lost all that. Nolan Ryan rookie card, lost that. Just lost so much stuff. And so he tried to get it up as high as he could. I lost one of my, of course, you know, I drive a wrap car. Yeah. My dad was driving a Sequoia that we gave to him as well. And lost that in the flood. And just, I remember that day like it was. So my dad gets picked up in a bateau. He gets brought over to, back to the day of Darren, he gets brought over to Rushing Road by Don Seafood, and there's a hotel there. And he goes and gets stored over that hotel. Well, later that night, I'm calling to check on him. Cell phone service is intermittent because everybody's using their cell phones. You can't get through it sometimes. Yeah. My dad calls me up and says, hey, the water's rising even higher over here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out, don't know when I'm going to be able to eat or any of that type stuff. Yeah. So I went to Facebook immediately, and I posted on Facebook. I said, hey, look, does anybody have a boat that I can borrow to go get my dad? I'm an only child. I just want to get him to safety or whatever. Can anybody help me with a boat? Well, my neighbor across the street, and I was living in Live Oak Landing off of Sims Road at the time, and so my neighbor across the street said, yeah, I got a boat. Well, his son, Jared, lived with him. Jared was 18. My next door neighbor, Logan, went with me, and my daughter went with me as well. She was, I think, 16 at the time. Yeah, 16 at the time. Yeah. And so we go and we put in at Acadiana Place, which is right there on Highway 16, right at Amite Church Road. Yep. And I remember, Jim, to go back to that time, I remember it like it was yesterday. Have you ever been to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and you see the streams, and you're fishing with a fly rod, right, and the water's just barely going over the stream, you know, and you're standing there fishing. That's kind of like the water looked like as it crossed over Highway 16 right there. It's barely moving over. It was like maybe an inch deep at that point. And so I'm like, okay, great. So we get up a little bit further. We put the boat in. We launched the boat at Acadiana Place. And so we're going. Now, Logan is my next door neighbor. He's in the boat. My daughter's in the boat, and Jared's in the boat, and I'm in the boat. And I had a flashlight on me and a cell phone on me. And then I parked my truck along Highway 16, and that's where we launched the boat. Well, we put in, and we start going, and Logan's driving, and the current pushed us so far. And keep in mind, we were crazy. We didn't have life jackets on at the time, none of us, unfortunately. Pushed us up against a pole. The boat goes up sideways and capsizes, flips over.
Oh, wow.
All I remember, and I went down, and I finally touched bottom. I don't know where I was at. I was somewhere off Highway 16 in a gully somewhere or something, because I don't remember touching bottom, and all I remember was the water was cold, and it was flowing. And I said, I got to come out of here, and I got to find Darby. That's my daughter. So I came up, and I saw her, and she's crying. And the motor of the boat is still running at this time, so I'm thinking, oh, my God, it's going to cut her, right? So I grab her, and I throw her to a tree that I saw at the front of Acadiana Place. To this day as I'm talking to you, I call that the tree of life every time I pass it, right? Because I didn't know what I didn't know what was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Logan comes up. I find Logan. Logan's with Darby now, my daughter. They're all hanging on to the tree. I have no idea where Jared is. So I'm holding on to this boat. Picture this. I'm holding on to the boat on my right hand. I'm trying to push myself up to get on top of this boat that's moving about, I guess, 3 to 4 miles because of the current. It's pushing it.
Yeah.
And I know that at the very back part of, I didn't know where I was at really, but all I knew is that the Amite River is somewhere near here. And if I hit that Amite River, I'm done. I'm gone.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And so I tried to get enough leverage to push myself up. Well, finally I did. I got up on top of the boat, and Jared was on the other side. He comes up on top of the boat, and we're floating. And Jared said, hey, you see that tree? You want me to jump to that tree? I said, no. I said, I'm going to try to signal, because I somehow, and I don't know how this happened. It's the Lord upstairs. Don't know how this happened. I held on to my cell phone, and I held on to that flashlight that I had. Don't know how that happened. And all that I'm trying to push up, I don't know what made me hold on to that, but I did. Get up on top, and I'm Morse coding back toward Highway 16 is what I'm doing. I know that Highway 16 was the opposite way I was going.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to flicker back and forth. So I grabbed my cell phone out of my pocket, and I tried to dial out. Well, I called home my wife, because she knew we were launching, and I said I couldn't get through. So then I called, if you know Brandon Browning.
Yep.
I called Brandon Browning on the phone, and it didn't connect, or I didn't think it connected. And all he remembers me saying is help, help, help. So Brandon calls my wife at my house, and he said, hey, where's Darren? And my wife says, he just launched to go pick up his dad, Douglas, at over there by Don's. He said, well, I just got the weirdest telephone call. I got the call saying, help, help, help. And my wife just broke down at that point. She didn't know.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he said, go find him, please. Go find him. Well, Brandon's brother worked at the sheriff's department, and I think he was running an airboat at the time, looking for people or whatever. And somehow a jet ski came up to Darby at the Tree of Life up front and said, hey, look, my dad's back there. They were going to pick Darby up. She says, my dad's back there. Go get him first. Because they were safe. They were holding on to the tree. They wasn't going anywhere. She just knew I was floating. Yeah. She had enough knowledge to tell them, go get my dad first. So me and Jared jumped on the back of that jet ski. I've never been so happy to see a damn jet ski in my life, man. Never been so happy. So I got on that jet ski, and they pulled me out of there, and that was it. I had to pay for a boat that capsized and 3 cell phones, because I lost mine and died, Jared's and so forth, but we didn't lose our life, and that's the blessing behind it.
Amen to that.
Never made it to my dad. Never made it to him. I had to rebuild a motor to the boat because it was gone.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that we tried, and lesson learned. But yeah, we almost didn't turn out too good, because our motor could have cut us up. We could have drowned. I mean, there's several different things could have happened.
Well, and I appreciate that story, and I'm so glad you shared it.
Yeah.
And it is a prime example of anybody who experienced that in 2016 has a story. Yeah. No matter how crazy these stories get, the most bizarre point about them is they're real. It 100%. Really happened. And the passion that comes out of people when they tell that day, that infamous day in history, is just unbelievable to me. And so glad that obviously you were okay. Now, eventually, for the folks out there that weren't around then, eventually it did stop raining.
It did.
The water did recede. And then really the mess started.
It did.
You are in a unique industry in that you're a realtor.
Yes.
And realtors during this time have always intrigued me because when I look at the flood and I look at the fact that so many houses were affected by that, thousands and thousands of houses. Yeah. What was your first thought when kind of the smoke cleared, if you will, and you're in an industry where this is your livelihood?
Yeah. My first thought that day and after everything subsided was that how many of these people are going to be impacted?
Yeah.
And where are we going to place them? How are we going to help them rebuild their lives? That was so important to me because a house can be rebuilt, but a life, you have so many memories there. You have so much stuff there that you have accumulated over time that whether it's pictures of loved ones, look at all these people. So I had to find a way to just connect with people to where it was so much more than real estate. It's a life, and that is still what it is today. You know, it's a life. This whole real estate deal, there's a result that comes along with it, and that's a living that I get to make as a result of it. But it's so much more. Everybody has their different journey, and how do we affect that journey? And to answer your question directly, I was worried about the impact of what was going to happen regarding the rebuilding stage of this, because I thought, this is what I initially thought. I initially thought investors were going to come in from Florida, from Texas, from all over, and just buy up everything. That's what I thought.
Gutted.
Yes, a guy flooded and gutted. And it was a challenge because I'm sitting here used to selling. Average sales price at the time was $200,000, Livingston Parish, $250,000, as far as that goes. And with that being said, I'm selling flooded and gutted houses for $35,000, $40,000. Still doing the same amount of work, but it's just a flooded and gutted house. It's weird to walk into a house and take a picture of a bunch of studs and no sheetrock.
Right.
And it's different. You know, people can't envision stuff like that, as far as that goes. And so it changed our landscape a lot. And on the flip side of that, Jim, one of the hardest things that was hard to say, and it still is a challenge to this day, believe it or not, you have a 1970s, 1980s house that's still a 1970s and 1980s style on the outside, but on the inside it's brand new.
Yes. And before we get off that point, I was one of those people. My house was built in 1978. Yeah. I live in a neighborhood with the best neighbors you could ever want, and I never once dreamed of moving. It was my starter home that stayed my permanent home because I fell in love with the people around me. And so we stayed there, and we did some additions to our house and things like that, but no updates. Yeah. Paneling at one point. Yeah. Well, that went away. And that was a result of the flood. Yeah. And I kind of miss that paneling. As weird as it is, because I'm kind of I'm a nostalgic dude.
That's right.
But you bring up a good point that these houses on the outside might say 1978 was when they were built. Right. But you walk in it and it's 2020, That's 2022. Right. It's the granite countertops.
That's right. And everybody they must have had a run on this gray flooring that they had that's ceramic tile, looks like wood.
Oh yeah.
Every house, I said, 5-6 years from now, from the flood time period, 2020, 2021, 2022, we're going to sell, all of our houses are going to have the same basic flooring in it. And it does. Yeah. It's amazing how many people. Yeah.
Wood like ceramic tile.
Exactly right.
And Darren, one of the reasons I did that was after the flood, the carpeting got soaked and we did nothing but drag out carpeting for like a day. And I said in my mind, I will never have carpet again.
100%. A lot of people aren't.
Yeah. We just, if it ever happened again, we're spraying it off with the hose. It's that wood like ceramic tile is practically waterproof.
100%.
So,
and it's great stuff. It doesn't, it's really, really resilient to a lot of things.
Amen.
And I think it looks amazing too in a lot of houses too. They got some pretty shades of that. Let's go back to Hurricane Katrina if you want to digress a little bit.
Yeah.
Go back to Hurricane Katrina, compared that natural disaster to what we had right here. Now, I saw this basically, I was working for Louisiana State Police at the time, during that time in Katrina. And I had gotten my real estate. I was 5 years in at that time in real estate. And so during Katrina, they had a guy come in from out of state, and he said, I want to buy every 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that's 10 years or newer, up to $200,000. I want every one of them.
Wow.
And I think he spent like $14 million or something with one company here locally. I won't say the name of the company, but it wasn't me. But long and the story short, it's amazing to see those people do that. But fast forward to where we were here, I thought that exact thing was going to happen. And during Katrina, property values increased 23% for Livingston Parish as a whole. I was president of the Board of Realtors 2009. So we still saw the residual effects of that because Katrina happened 2005, 2006. And so we still saw the residual impact of that over those last years of what was happening. And property values went up 23% just in Livingston Parish because of supply and demand. Everybody was moving in from New Orleans, Slidell, all over the place to come here. Some people actually ended up in Lafayette. Some people ended up in Houston, Texas, a lot of different places. And so it affected values tremendously as far as that. I thought the same thing was going to happen as a result of the flood, but a lot of people stayed in their homes. A lot of people rebuilt. A lot of people remodeled, like yourself. And that's probably the best thing they could have ever done because I never, ever wished that flood on anybody, ever. It was an absolutely catastrophe event. But it helped people see a new vision of what their home could be. Yeah. And a lot of people did a lot of great improvements as a result of that. So yeah, I tell people all the time, I'd always looked at my ceilings and said, I need to scrape my ceilings at some point. This popcorn is outdated. And I always looked at my lighting and said, I'd like some can lights up there. Had it not been for that flood, I would still be scraping my ceilings most likely. And I try to look, you got to find something positive in all of that negative. And so I always tried to look at, it just kind of forced me to do everything all at once. Yeah. And of course, I never wanted to do that, but looking back on it now, it sure updated my house. And, from countertops to cabinets to scrape ceilings to colors on the walls. Yeah, 100%. Would you believe even 10 years to this day, right now, 10 years later, there's still houses in this parish right now that are still flooded, gutted, and nothing happened to them. That's so sad. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I sold one. I saw one, I guess about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Maybe it was 2 months ago. But yeah, I saw one. I went into this house. I was going to go into this house. I didn't walk inside just due to the situation. So it's, Well, and you were one of the people, Darren, that one of the things that I picked up on that you verbalized earlier was, I wanted to help. I wanted to see how I could help the community because I was in an industry they were going to need. Yeah, 100%. They were going to need it. A lot of people didn't know what to do. You had a lot of older people that they're not wanting to redo their look. I'm just going to cut the sheetrock, have somebody help me do all this, and I want to sell it as is. And you could help people with that. 100%. And you could also help people if they had to buy a new house. Maybe they didn't want to live in a flood zone anyway. But the interesting thing about this flood, a lot of people that flooded weren't in a flood zone, were they? That's exactly right, 100%. And a lot of people were not in a flood zone, and they didn't have flood insurance. And that was the absolute hardest thing for anybody because how do you rebuild that? People are taking their savings that they worked for all their life, didn't have flood insurance. This thing hits, and now they're just wiped out. Yeah. And that's where you have to be a voice of reason. You said find the good in everything. How did this change people? How did this help people grow? And that's what I always looked for in that industry. How could I really help these people? And so it definitely changed a lot of people's lives in many, many, many different ways. In the industry, let's go say a year post the flood. Yeah. People at that point are moving in, remodeled homes. Everything is getting back to as normal as possible. There was a lot more hurdles still to come, but for the most part, people have remodeled those homes and they're getting back in them that had decided to stay. Now, you had a flood here. And so that's going to affect things in your industry like flood insurance costs. 100%. Right? Things like that. I know some people early on in that time that they could afford the house. They couldn't afford the flood insurance anymore. Yeah. Did you see things like that? Yes. Flood insurance has been a challenge in our parish for quite some time, just about that because we have so much low land here. We have swamp land throughout a majority part of the northern part of the parish. And so flood insurance is definitely a challenge. And yeah, you're absolutely 100% right. They flood, they rebuild their house, and then they say, okay, well, now I got to get flood insurance based off of a flood elevation. I can't afford it. And so a lot of people were resorting to basically not NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program.
Yeah.
They're going to private policies through the Lords of London and some of the other ones to get lower insurance rates. And I saw that a little while. Matter of fact, this year, one of our clients, we're about to put their house on the market for sale. She's had flood insurance for quite some time. She's paying $4,000 plus a year in flood insurance for her home, and we got the quote down to $1,300 through a private policy.
Wow.
Yeah, and same amount of coverage.
Wow. So there are options there.
There are tons of
people.
options, yes, and the public may not know that, right? And so that's a very good point of view. You know, you can always look at your options, because if you're paying X amount of dollars through the national program, just see what your options is. If it's the same amount, no harm, no foul. If it's more, still no harm, no foul. If it's less, then you can save money, just as long as the coverage policy, the coverage limits don't change.
Yeah. Let's shift for a minute and let's go maybe 5 years post flood.
Yeah.
I know at one point you had seen property values in this area, and a lot of that I'm going to credit the assessor for. He had what he called flood discounts.
Yep.
There were several years of that program, and then eventually it went away, obviously, because everybody for the most part was back in their house. But all those things from a realtor standpoint, I say realtor, it's realtor.
That's all right. You're all good.
I had a friend one time write it out for me like you do when you're in school.
Yeah.
I cannot get that out of my head.
Yeah.
Realtor, Jim. But a realtor like you, 5 years post that thing, did you have a point, maybe even if it's before 5 years, where you said, man, you know, we're not only coming back, we're coming back even stronger here in Livingston Parish?
Well, we had a thing that happened the year before that, post 5 years, in year 4, which was 2020, which was COVID. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so when COVID hit, that was definitely a challenge in my market, because now you can't show houses. You can't walk in. People don't want, you want to wear booties. You don't want nobody in there. So how did realtors, how did we fix that problem? Well, I can tell you how I fixed it. So I teamed up with a guy who owns a company called Listings Magic is the name of the company, right? Yeah. And so I called the guys from London, brilliant guy, just with tech when it comes to that. Sure. And I talked to him. His name is Hans Guth. And so Hans, I said,
that's a great name from London.
Great name. Great. And so Hans calls me. I call him up and say, hey man, I said, I know I've been working with you for quite some time. We had a relationship since 2009 in business. And so I said, look, this COVID thing happened, and I need you to figure out how we can build this. And so what he did was, I still had to sell houses. That's my livelihood. So what did we do? So I had him build an app that basically whenever I can create it, like if Jim's listing his house, for example, for sale at 123 Smith Street, right? Yeah. Jim's listing his house on Smith Street. I can send Jim a link to his cell phone. It's a text message, and everybody got text messages during that time. Sure. Once you press that message to open it up, it opens up your camera, and it says, hey, Jim, walk through your house and record your house for me. So now Jim is in his house because Jim's living there, right? Yep. And Jim can walk through his house and record the whole house. And when you press stop, it automatically uploads it to a virtual web page that I built for your home. And I can share that link with the public to say, hey, what does that house over on 123 Smith Street look like? Boom. And they write it up, and then we can schedule it. They can write a purchase agreement subject to visual inspections of the property itself, so they can see it in person whenever everybody's out and whatever the case may be. So yeah, it just saved time, because we had those people who, I don't want anybody in my house during this time. I don't want anything, but I still want you to market my property. And so I was able to do that and have the foresight enough to say, okay, how do I get it into the consumer's hands, right? The homeowner's hands. Yeah. And let the homeowner, and then at that point, the homeowner can sell their house, because who knows their home better than the realtor? The homeowner. They live there. That's right. Right? Yeah. And so, hey, tell them all the great features about it. I love the master bedroom. I love whatever. I love the granite countertops. And they would press the stop button on the video, and then at that point it uploads to a web page, and then I can build a list of everybody who's interested in 1234 Smith Street. So when things open up again and people feel more comfortable with showings, boom, we can go ahead and sell it. Yeah. And it worked out great. But let's go to 2021. You mentioned 2021. After COVID, what happened to the market? 2021 was an unbelievable year, because rates started to go to the 2s and the 3% at that time, and it was absolutely incredible for the real estate industry. Everything that we put on the market, 2021, 2022, 2023, was selling.
Yeah.
It could be a crooked house, crooked windows, crooked doors. It didn't matter. It was selling. And because interest rates, it was almost free money.
Yeah.
You know, and so
legit was. Yeah.
no doubt. And so with that being said, me personally, I'm just telling you my opinion. I think it's the worst thing the government could have ever done because people have golden handcuffs now, right?
Yeah.
And it was great for the realtors and then the people who were going to stay there for their forever home. It was great for that, right? But what about the person who has to move and they're moving now from a 2% to a 6% rate? It's a challenge, right? And that's just the truth. It's the truth. It's the golden handcuffs. You know, the person that would call Darren up and say, hey, I don't like where I live because it's just too far from my work, right? I want to sell my house. Well, they're going to say, well, I'll suck up that drive for an extra 25 cents a gallon as opposed to losing that rate at 2% or 6%.
Yeah.
And that's what had happened in that time period. That's still what we're seeing a little bit of right now in today's market as well, that people don't want to change, you know, because of the rates. However, the people that are, let's fast forward to now and just talk about selling right quick. The people that are selling right now and buying right now are what we call the 3Ds, death, downsize, divorce. Then you got job relocation in there, right?
Yeah.
So those people are the ones that got to sell. They have to sell. And that's causing a little volatility in the market as far as that goes. And then we got this war in Iran that's happening still. That's a challenge and some issues there. And then we got a new Fed chairman that's making some changes as well that came in. But back to the flood portion of it, back in 2021, that was some of the best times when it came. People were getting back to normalcy. People were 5 years post-flood at that point. Life is back to normal again. We're all still praying daily that it never, ever happens again.
Amen.
And people are just starting to accept that, hey, this is how life is going to be.
Yeah.
And we didn't see, and this is where I was really worried, Jim, just to be candid. I was worried about the appraised value of houses. Even when the flood happened in 2016, how was that going to affect the flood?
That's a great question.
And that's what I was really, really worried about. And then also on the flip side of that, there's something in Louisiana called Legion Beyond Moiety. And it's a French word that says you can't sell a property within less than 50% of fair market value. But we were.
Yeah.
And that was what I was worried about, because if you do sell it within 50% of the value, then that home seller can come back and rescind the sale. And so I'm like, what in the world? How are we doing that? If we got a house that's $250,000 in regular fair market value, and now we're dropping down to $30,000 as sticks and bricks, right? Are you really selling at half of value or less than half of value? Theoretically, you are. Yeah. But if it's improved and you put sheetrock up and you build it, are you at that point? So that's where that really didn't come into play at that point, but it popped in my head initially.
That's interesting.
Right? It popped in my head initially. And so I was wondering how is it going to affect the appraised values? Because like you said, you personally, 1970s, 1980s house, popcorn ceilings, paneling on the walls. And then you got that going, and then you got to say, okay, well, what do I do? How do I make this, and how do I update the outside to match the inside? Well, sometimes you can't. Because you can't change the outward appearance other than paint, right? You put a new roof on, you can sometimes update a little bit by painting the exterior, but as far as basically rebuilding the whole house, you're not going to do that. And so it was a challenge to say, okay, how is it going to affect appraisals? And to this day, I didn't see any, and I have not seen any negative impact regarding appraised value from the flood.
That's interesting. And, you know, you talk about changing the aesthetics and how people did that, and a quick story that just popped in my head. Yeah. I'll never forget after my house was gutted, and I had to go all the way up because we had over 4.5 feet in our house. So we were all the way up to the ceiling, you know, just sticks and bricks, like you're saying. And I remember once I was so blessed to have so many friends that I said, no, I don't need any help. And they did not listen to me. Yeah. And they all showed up, and I still get goosebumps from that because they know who I was. And they knew I would never say I needed help. And here comes 17 guys that are like, you're not doing this by yourself. And, you know, it moved me in a lot of ways, changed me in a lot of ways. But I remember sitting in my house when everybody had left, and I'm looking around, and me and my wife are in there, and I said, what did we not like about this house? Because now would be the time to change it. And both of us were in agreement that our bathrooms were too small. Yeah. And I'll never forget it. I had a sledgehammer in my hand, and I walked to where my bathrooms would have been, and I had two adjoining bathrooms right next to each other, butted up. And they had a big wall with the joist, you know, right there. And I took that sledgehammer and I knocked that whole wall out. And I looked at my wife and I said, congratulations. We just got the biggest bathroom in the neighborhood.
What? Look out.
And I'm telling you, Darren, if you walked in my bathroom, you would see a shower that is like 6 feet long and got sprays, water coming out everywhere. It is totally obscene to have in that particular house.
Amazing.
And you would say, this just doesn't fit here. But you know what? I wanted something that I could say, we did this.
Yeah.
And you know, that was the thing, bathrooms. And we made our bathrooms bigger, and now we have bathrooms that it's kind of like building the biggest house in the neighborhood and it doesn't fit. Our bathrooms are that way. Well, they should be in the country club.
Well, kitchens and bathrooms will give you the highest return.
Yeah.
So that's a win. So you're winning right there.
I'm winning right there. Let me ask you this now. How is the market today, 10 years later, in this area?
So right now, I can tell you in 2026, I'm having the best year I've ever had in my entire career, 25 years.
Wow. Even with interest rates
it is
where they
absolutely incredible. I'm just able to, I mean, I'm like, for example, let's go back to last Monday. I ran 13 appointments last Monday. I think it was 11 Tuesday, 9 Wednesday, 8 Thursday, and I think I had 5 on Friday.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy appointments, just helping so many people. And so many people are moving for different reasons. Like I mentioned earlier, everybody has a different journey. Everybody's on a journey. And some people, you know, and to be honest, 3 of those appointments last week, I told them, I said, look, it's not your time to sell.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? Like, well, you're the realtor, man. You supposed to. What do you mean it's not my time to sell? Well, based on their everybody has a different reason, right? But everybody has a reason why they should sell or should not sell. And so when I go on any appointment, just to be quite frankly, I'm not there to list that house. I'm there to determine what their goals are.
Sure.
And what is their journey? And if I fit into that puzzle, that's great. But in those 3 instances, it didn't make sense for them on many different reasons. One, they were unsure on whether or not they were going to go their separate ways. Well, look, let's work on your separate ways first. Let's see if we can keep this together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. Sometimes you got to be a counselor
Yeah.
in the transaction. Another one, guy wasn't sure about a job relocation. Right? He said, like, I'm relocating to Beaumont with Exxon. I'm like, okay. I said, well, he said, I want to go ahead and put my house on the market. I'm like, well, looking at the days on the market, you're going to have to move twice. I said, you need to wait until a later time period before they do that. And plus, on top of this, they were, at the time, you know, this last week, they were scheduled, they're going to do an interest rate drop with the new Fed chairman, but I don't think rates are going to drop. Just to be on, I'm putting it on the record right now. I don't think rates are going to drop anytime soon. Just to be honest.
So don't wait to sell your house if you need.
No, I don't think rates are coming down. I did 3 weeks ago. I think they were coming down because that's what speculations we were hearing through all the different reports and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to happen here anytime soon.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
But overall, good market.
Unbelievable market. Unbelievable market. Everybody's, like I said, everybody, death, downsize, divorce. That's the reason why. The other D's is diapers, people having babies and so forth. They got to upsize. And then diamonds, people going from a smaller house to a luxury house. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And so people do that all the time. So that's the 5 Ds.
Wow, very interesting. I was not familiar with those acronyms. So I like that. The 5 Ds of real estate.
Yep, death, downsize, divorce, diamonds, and diapers.
I want you to get in. Y'all, Darren is a broker as well. Yep. And so I want you to give a shout out to your company and how people can find you, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm Darren James with Darren James and Associates. You've probably seen my billboards going down the road. Your home sold, guaranteed. That's me. And I'm very, very honored to be able to be part of this podcast. Very honored to be able to provide value, Jim. Thank you so much for this again. And any questions that anybody has, it's all, you know, I'm an open book. Please reach out to me anytime. They can visit our website, agent225.com. agent225.com or call me on my cell phone, 225-335-7666, 225-335-7666. I always answer. You can text me, call me anytime. I get up at 5 in the morning. I work till past midnight. So.
Yep. And he also works out at like 10 o'clock at night,
yes,
which makes me feel guilty every time I pull up Facebook. I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting on the couch and Darren's doing chin-ups at, you know, wherever he works out.
I can't do no chin-ups. I got some problems with my knee right now that I'm having. I tore my ACL, my MCL, and my meniscus last year in June. Had surgery on it, and so it's still giving me some fits. So I went into. I'm just kind of off the book, but
that's all right.
I went in to get a second opinion from a doctor, and because I thought something had went wrong with the surgery because it's been over a year and I'm still having problems. Yeah. And I told the doctor, I said, you know, can you check on this? He said, Darren, that's one of the worst knees I've ever seen. I said, well, I appreciate that, doc. Thank you so much. I said, well, how do we fix it?
Yeah, we got any good news for me?
How do we fix it? He said, well, you're going to have a knee replacement eventually. And I said, well, I don't know about that. So ironically enough, this is how the man upstairs works.
Yeah.
I go eat and I eat a smoothie. And if you ever tried the smoothie, I'll shout out to Dale Brass, who owns Paradise Smoothies. And,
great guy.
Yeah, great guy. So Dale, I walk into his shop one day and I went over there and I'm listening to him, and they had a guy in there that was retired military general. Yeah. And he had these leg compressions on for his legs. And Dale introduced me to him and said, man, I said, what's the leg compressions for? I said, I just had knee surgery. Ironically enough, I'm thinking in my mind, well, that's coming up for me, so let's talk.
Yeah.
Right? And so I said, man, how did it go? He said, I had the best doctor ever. I'm like, really? I said, who did you have? He said, you have to see this guy. And the doctor's name is Dr. Mushkow.
Yeah. I
said, how in the world you spell that? And so I had to look it up on Google because he didn't know how to spell it either. Anyway, I looked it up, found him. He's at Oshner right there at O'Neill.
Okay.
And so it took me 4.5 weeks to get into Dr. Mushkow. And so I went in there and met with him. And Jim, I'm going to go ahead and shout out Dr. Mushkow here again because I wrote a positive review for him. Yeah. He spent over an hour with me.
Wow.
In that doctor's office.
And that's rare for a doctor.
Unbelievable. Just showing me models, showing me how the knee works, showing me this. And I said, look, this is the problem that I'm having. He looked at my MRIs from the previous surgery, all that kind of stuff. He said, yeah, you're going to need knee surgery.
Yeah.
He said, but can I be honest with you? I said, please tell me. He says, you don't need it now. And I was shocked. He said he did 250 surgeries on average a year, 200 to 250 a year. So he's very experienced in it.
Sure.
I said, well, why don't I need it now? He said, Darren, the average full knee replacement lasts 12 to 15 years. And I'm 52. He says, by the time you get in your 60s, you'll have to call me again. I'll have to do a second one. He says, you need to wait a little while. And so he told me I need to go see a sports medicine doctor. And so on August the 9th, I got a sports medicine doctor appointment for PRT, plasma replacement therapy. You ever heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so they're gonna.
You'll have to let me know how that does.
Yeah,
so
he's
very curious.
Yeah, so he's supposed to withdraw. So for the listeners out there, they're supposed to withdraw some blood out of my arm and put it in a little centrifuger, and it spins it around, and it extracts the plasma, separates the plasma from the blood and the water or whatever else is in there, and then they re-inject the plasma into my knee. And it's supposed to help. And I asked Dr. Mushkow this. I said, "Well, that sounds kind of painful." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "It is pretty painful." He said, "You will be in pain for the next couple of days." He said, "Because what's happening is you're injecting plasma into your knee, and it's going to cause white blood cells to be on alert, and it's going to put inflammation into your body on purpose to make them start rebuilding cartilage." Yeah. And that's what's going to happen. And he said the first 3, 4, 5 days, he said, you'll be not your best person, and you'll be in a lot of pain. He said, but after that, he said, it's pretty good recovery time. And I said, well, let's talk about worst case scenario. What if it don't work? And I asked him that. I said, what happens if it don't work? He says, well, at that point, we can go in there, we give you a shot, and we can go into that area where you're hurting and do nerve blocks on it and just block those nerves from hurting you so where you can walk normal.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. So there's light
at the end of the tunnel.
There's alternatives out there. There's always ways to make something happen. There's always positive results. That's the way I do. I lead my life by the acronym of HOPE, HOPE. And in my world, that stands for have only positive expectations. So for your listeners out there, go out there, be a light to this world, lead others to Him, and be the best you can be.
Amen. And again, thank you for coming on the show. Y'all, first thought that came to mind, first person that came to mind, and I know a lot of realtors that do great work or great realtors, but Darren James would be hard to beat on his knowledge and his experience, and so we were happy to have you on. Appreciate it again. I
appreciate you so much, my friend, and you're just a leader in this industry. Local leaders is given for a reason, and it definitely follows you wholeheartedly. So never forget the value you bring to so many people each day, man.
Thank you.
Many people love you. Many people respect you, and I'm one of them. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Very welcome.
To all the listeners, thank you for listening. Please, if you got anything out of this podcast, share it on your social media. It is how we grow. And until next time, I'm Jim Chapman, reminding you, love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you very much.
Thank you.